moving towards strategy for other things too. I don't know.
And what's the worst thing that could happen if you made it?
For me, it would be not making decisions or not setting intentions.
And how would that be a problem?
Because then I would have to be content. I would have to be content not pursuing some of my other dreams.
Okay, so if you change this and you're more open to things, then essentially it would cause trouble for you and that you wouldn't be able to pursue other dreams.
No, I think if I did not set intentions, like if I didn't create goals that were more in line with a moving towards strategy, then I feel like I would get into some kind of paralysis where I would be saying like, okay, this is it. This is as good as it gets. I'm not going to pursue those things. It wasn't, circumstances were not the things that held me back.
Look who we have here. Hello. Can you hear us?
Yep. Hello.
Okay, perfect. How have you been?
Oh, good. Thank you, darling. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm in Singapore right now.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm kind of tired of it though.
Oh, did the volcano erupt?
No, I don't think it's gonna.
Really? Just smoking and saying hi?
There's a potential that it might, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's scaring away all
It's
the
been.
tourists, and that's the problem for the locals right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they've been talking about it quite a bit. Hello, Valerie.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I heard you came to the group too, so you're interacting with everybody. You got a good foot in with everybody, right?
Yeah. Much fun.
Good. These guys are awesome.
Yeah, they certainly are.
I'm gonna get about another minute or two, and then we'll see if anybody else comes. I was thinking that Sylvia would probably make it too.
Okay, and you saw Bob and Steve are they're all pooped out from too much NLPing.
Yeah, I guess there's a limit on sometimes how much you can do of it, right?
Like their brains are full.
What are you working through or working on right now, Danita?
Dragon.
Yeah, you making...
Dragon arm. Hang on. It's for a silent auction, so I'm just finishing up stitching the arm together, and then I'll be able to put it all together.
Oh wow!
Yes, lots of fun. I have 9 days left to get it done. My mum's like, "Why do you always wait till the last minute?" It's like, I'm not. What are you working on?
A lot of things.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I changed the Metaprogram, which I've been looking how to do that for years.
Yeah.
And then I finally just put two and two together, and I was like, wow, it is possible, and it's a lot simpler than what I was making it.
Isn't that always the case, though?
Yeah.
A lot of the problems that we put ourselves through is because we make everything a lot more difficult than we need to. And when we're just realizing that is very powerful.
I'd say that's probably true for just about all of life. It's a whole lot simpler than anybody wants to make it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, if you saw the video, I just did spatial anchoring and really elicited where everything was, and then turned around, did the steps, and practiced a bunch. But yeah, in that one context, it's still there. But what it's done, and this is kind of for you, Valerie, too, is it's also made me notice a bunch of other metaprograms in different contexts that are still fighting it and still going with the away from strategy. So that's been interesting.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by you kept using the word ecological, and that's something I've been thinking a lot about.
Yeah, I'll give you a specific example. And so mine was about money and going towards more, just more in the bank account. And so here in Singapore, everything's so damn expensive. And so I'm trying to go away from everything that's expensive. And so that's okay, because what I want is still more opportunities with money, and they're not totally related. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I see Sylvia.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing fantastic.
That's a good thing.
Definitely.
I'm in Singapore right now. I think you saw the pictures.
I did. I liked them.
Oh, it's a beautiful place.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
My luggage once went to Singapore.
Oh yeah, without you?
Without us, we went to Holland, and we were on Singapore Airlines, and all the luggage went to Singapore.
Oh, that'd be fun trying to get those back.
Oh, we did eventually, but I think we spent about 3 days and didn't have any of our suitcases. We were actually moving to Holland at the time, so that was an adventure. But we got it all back.
Do you have the handout for the NLP intensive, the whole Metaprograms? Did you get that?
Possibly. Is that something you emailed out, or is that the one that we've been working with in the meetings?
Yeah, so I emailed it out. You might not have it because it was before I added your name to the email list.
Oh, it might well be.
So I'm going to go ahead and send it to you real quick.
Thank you.
But if you want to go ahead and just give us like a quick rundown of your take on Metaprograms, kind of what you think about them and what your experience in life dealing with them has been, I think it would be beneficial for all of us.
Fine, put me on the spot.
Of course. I'm sending you something, you got to contribute back.
Oh boy. Well, I think of Metaprograms as sort of the underlying foundation that kind of is going on in the background. I often compare it to the computer program that I work in at work, where it's built on a platform, and the platform has all the basic commands and stuff that's going on underneath that has to be in operation in order for the stuff that goes on top of it. And it's the same sort of thing in the brain. You've got the stuff that's kind of been programmed in from day one, if you will, and is going on sort of under the radar, that we don't even think about it until we think about it. And that's where metacognition comes in, because it's thinking about thinking. And then you've got the other stuff that's going on top of that. But when you respond automatically to something, and you're just like, where did that come from? You have an outburst, or you start crying, or something along those lines, and it doesn't make any sense. A lot of that has to do with what's gone on underneath. And if you stop and you just say, okay, let me think about this, let me see what I can do to change that programming, because it's all changeable. It's just a question of being aware and taking the time to, just play with it and see what else works. Because the concept is, if something isn't working, try something else, try anything else. We talked about old Richard Bandler with his hammer with the catatonic patient and whacking him on the toe. And nothing else had worked to work with this patient. He had been part of the furniture for 3 years. And Bandler comes in and he's like, I'm not taking that. I'm just going to do what I'm going to do to create change. And once the break state had happened, then he was able to work with the patient and create a new program underneath. And then it's just a question of making it function automatically, like the stuff that already was. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yay! This is what happens when I watch Star Wars on a Sunday afternoon.
Gets you going, right? Sylvia and Valerie, I'm curious for you if Metaprograms came in any more through your life throughout the following or the past week, and just kind of an update for us and maybe how you saw them. I'll go to you first, Sylvia.
One came to mind. It actually happened on Thursday when I really realized that this guy that I work with, what his model or what his meta program was, and how I had to change my program in order to deal with him. And it worked out really well today. Thank you.
What was going on?
Well, he's very rah, in your face, treat you like a slave kind of a person. And I always reacted to him. And so today, during that meeting, it's like, I just calmed down and I just said, I'll just be really quiet when I talk to him. Got a whole different response out of him.
Really?
Yeah. He was still rah, but I wasn't letting him affect me today.
And how did that feel inside your head when you did that?
Much better, much calmer.
Yeah.
Not as reactive, yes.
Cool.
And Valerie, how about you? We had talked a little bit earlier, and you said that you'd noticed your program and essentially what it would take to change it if you were going to go ahead and moving away from to a towards strategy.
Right. So I'm still sorting that one out. I'm working on that. And then I think the other way it came up, the president of the company met with me. We have a monthly meeting, and he decided to offer me some feedback. And he said that I need to smile more at people or I will not be as successful as I could be. And he was pretty blunt about it. And so it really made me think a lot about external versus internal referencing, because he was explaining to me about how it's really easy to think that I am, it's really easy to assign motive to the fact that I'm not smiling. I mean, I think it's as simple as that people are infilling motive and meaning by the fact that I'm not smiling at them. And so, yeah, and it wasn't as threatening as it probably sounds. He wasn't threatening my professional career, but it was strong feedback. He partly felt like he could give me this feedback because he also doesn't smile. And when I peeled back the layers of the onion, it was more that I don't smile at him. And he and I kind of have a little bit of a history there, so a professional history. And so it made me think about, like, you know, when I see him, what's running through my mind, and I don't know. It was interesting, but I think that the people that I work with may not. I've always equated internal referencing with a strong self-esteem, so I'm trying to challenge my concept on that. And then it made me wonder about the people that are around me, and if they're internal referencers, external referencers, and the fact that I'm not Daisy Sunshine, you know. Like, how is that impacting my career? So
I just wonder if he would have said this if you'd have been a man.
No, I don't believe that he would. I think there's a lot of things that he would not have said to me in the last year were I not a man. He turned me down for a big promotion a year ago, and I was a really close second. I didn't lose it out to a man. I lost it out to another woman. But when he delivered the news to me, he asked me if I was going to sabotage her leadership in order to prove that I was a better candidate. And that is something that I don't think he would have had the nerve to do. So I'm trying to decide if I can, like, get past that, because it's been a year now. And I'm like, I don't think he's a bad person, but I'm just like, is that what's running through my mind? because I don't deal well with the whole character assassination bit, which is what it felt like. It was sad because I'd worked for him directly for several months, but what came out of that is the culture that he came from before he joined our company was a lot more cutthroat and political.
Oh.
I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
The company I work at is not cutthroat and it's not highly political. So it was like a culture clash. It just didn't.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we've had some people at our company who do that. They work for our competitors and they bring that same attitude, and then they're kind of gobsmacked when it's like, this is not how my company is, and you're trying to impose that on our company and culture. And it's very jarring for those of us who've been there for a long time, because we're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Danita, I don't know if you got the document or not, but essentially what Valerie had mentioned, two of the metaprograms that we've already done, probably the most classical one is the moving away and moving towards strategies.
Yeah, we've talked about it a bit at the group.
Yeah, we've covered those like really extensive. And then last week we covered the self-sorting, or not self-sorting, the internal reference from an external reference. And so we had a huge distinction last week when we talked about this, was oftentimes the external reference is going to be in reference to mostly low self-esteem people. But we got a chance to see it in a different light because it's not always the case. Whereas they're more likely to be low self-esteem if they need external, outside support and proof of whatever. It's more likely that they'll be low self-esteem, but I found specific situations where they need that outside external validation, but they're also highly functional, high esteem people as well, which was interesting for me because I hadn't had that before.
Yeah, sometimes it's just sort of a check-in kind of a mechanism. It depends on the person.
Yeah. I was seeing this one girl, and she essentially has such a high self-esteem that she has all these different sources that she can go and she can find for the external validation. And she's so good at doing it, and she knows that she can do it. She has that esteem, but it comes off sometimes as a low self-esteem place.
Yeah. Interesting.
So what we are looking at today is self-sorting and sorting by others. And so this is a frame of reference where your primary concern is either doing what's best for you or doing what's best for everyone else. And so at first glance, this would look at maybe a little bit selfish, where I only care about me, or only caring about other people. This one's very interesting because it could, very good chance that I believe that it could be learned and adapted to. Now, the example given and the one that I take from is the Tony Robbins Unlimited Power version, where he is talking about an airline and they had some kind of client dissatisfaction rate.
Yeah.
What they looked at is they looked specifically at the clients or the situations that people were dissatisfied in. And what they found is that only about 5 or 10% of the employees were self-sorting compared to sorting by others. And so when they saw this, they realized that they weren't very good customer service representatives because they cared more about themselves than other people. Getting rid of these people then allowed them to contribute more to the company because everybody else was generally then sorting by others, and so the customer experience was better.
Yeah.
I feel like I have seen a lot of examples of the stark difference between in a lot of the mediations that I've done over the years. I've done a lot of mediations for divorce and custody and time sharing. And there was always, not all of them, but there were certain ones where you'd have one party that would entirely sort by others. They would try to craft an agreement or a resolution that had nothing of their own self-interest represented. It was all about, you'd hear catchphrases like whatever she wants, or I'm going to do what's best for the kids, or this is in the kid's best interest, is another kind of meaningless catchphrase. But what I would see over time is that agreements that were entirely, where one party was entirely sorting by others, would fail. It would be untenable, unsustainable. Financially, the person couldn't keep it up.
Why do you think that is? Go deeper with that for us. Is there something going on with your mic? But yeah, when you get a chance, go deeper. And why do you think that the sorting by others is unsustainable? Or
what I would see is arrangements where a parent would completely exhaust their resources, whether it was their time, their energy, or their money, in order to buy into an arrangement, because they were entirely sorting by others. And so in their mind, I think their own needs didn't even come into play. They weren't even important because they saw themselves as self-sacrificing. And so for me, what it drew out was this idea that I think that's how some people approach parenting, is they say they do everything for their kids. They don't take care of themselves at all. And it's just, from what I've seen, it's just really, really damaging, because they believe that by sacrificing everything, and I'm just generalizing now, but the idea is that if I sacrifice everything, that's going to make me the very best parent that I could ever be on this planet. Versus somebody that is willing to invest in their children, but also invest in themselves, keep up their own health, keep up their own sanity, diverse interests, what have you, and the children benefiting from having a parent that's whole and complete.
Yes.
Versus a parent that is only ever, like, I'm thinking about, I can't remember her name, but the posing that we did, the parent that's only ever like trying to offer everything up.
the placater.
The placater, yeah. So I don't know, that's just what I saw. Like, so I would see a parent try to craft an agreement where their children, they were going to fly their children back and forth, twice a year, but they're simultaneously telling me that they're filing for bankruptcy and they can't afford to live. Like these things that are in stark
back and forth to the box. Yes.
Where it involved a heavy amount of like reality checking.
Yeah.
Or a parent that would agree to do all of the transportation for the time sharing. And it would mean that they would spend something like 25 hours a week on the road, just transporting the child back and forth. And so this idea that, is that really something that they can keep up? Is that, what's the cost of doing that?
Okay. So the way I see it and what you said is that essentially when somebody is too much of the sorting by others, they neglect their own needs, and then it becomes unsustainable because they essentially destroy themselves or don't take care of themselves.
Right.
And the specific example in this case is with children.
Yeah. So that's inspired me to be a strong self-sorter. After 10 years of seeing these mediations and seeing this as a repeating enough pattern. Yeah.
Wow.
Sylvia, what's your take? What do you see most?
What do I see most?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can relate. I'm going to relate this to what she was talking about. And children with parents that do not take the time to teach them to sit at the table, stay where they're supposed to be. And you'll see them running all over the restaurant because the parents are not in charge. The children are in charge. And they're telling the children what to do. I mean, the parents what to do, pretty much. It's and you can see it right away. And they're frustrated. They're frustrated. They don't know what to do. So they
want to be my child's friend.
Yes. Exactly.
I can't discipline my child because I got to be my child's friend.
Mm-hmm. But they're not doing them any good. They need to teach them life lessons. They need they need discipline.
Yes.
Yeah. Danita, you sort by yourself?
Only when I'm alone.
Oh,
Actually,
yeah?
no, I don't. I don't sort by myself when I'm alone because I've got too many voices in my head.
Which one am I talking to now?
Yeah. It depends on the situation. I like to get feedback, but and I used to be a lot more other oriented and externally oriented, and people would have to tell me that I was doing a good job in order to know that I was doing a good job. But I don't know if part of it is a function of getting older. And, what I do, I'm pretty self-directed in what I do at the office and things like that. And in my own businesses, if I don't do it and if I don't decide that it's the right thing to do. But then on the other hand, I think I mentioned I'm trying to buy a new car, or I'm intending to buy it. I'm intending to buy a new car.
You told me that, I think, 9 months ago.
Yes, and still haven't done it. And there's, I do function out of, I need somebody to tell me what's the right car to buy it to a certain point. But, at the end of the day, I'll have to decide myself. So I do both. But it depends on the situation. And, and I have experiences like Valerie and Sylvia both have, watching the way that people respond and do stuff. And, and there's a balance. It's very easy to martyr yourself by, it's like everybody else comes first. And, and there's also a manipulation I've found with that. It's like, I'm going to martyr myself and I'm going to give up everything. And, so Valerie's seen that in the mediation field, where you've got one part of the party who is like, I'm the better parent because I'm giving up everything.
That's exactly, that's what they're like.
But there is a manipulation with that, I believe, in some instances. And sometimes it's completely unconscious because people behave the way that they know how to behave. We talked about this at the group, that people use the best behavior and make the best choices based on the information and background that they have.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the nutter in Las Vegas last week. What, as horrible as that is, that seemed to him to be the best possible choice. Now, was that internally motivated or externally motivated, or who knows?
Yeah.
And we may never know.
That's a tough one to try to get into even.
Yeah. But that's the sort of situation. It's like, where does this kind of thinking come from? And, going back to the Metaprograms and, how that got locked in.
And you mentioned a few things here that I want to dive more into, because what we looked at last week was the internal versus external reference. And so how you did a good job versus how you did a good job. Is it because I know myself, or is it because they told me and I had 5-10 people say good job and now I know? So that's one part of it, right? And then there's another part where you sort by the others essentially what your motivations are. Do I want to make them feel good, or do I want to make myself feel good? And all these metaprograms is a state of reference where your underlying software, as it is showing you exactly the direction that you need to go to get you what you want. And so ultimately your goal is to get what you want and get what you need. And you're constantly on this torpedo path to doing this. And so it's interesting to know that the software is directing you towards that in this situation, at least one in two ways, whether it's looking out for others or it's looking out for yourself first, kind of a more direct path. What I also find about this one that's so interesting is that it can really be learned. Is that somebody that maybe has just been sorting by themselves the whole time can really start to do it for others. And then what they learn is that by giving somebody something one time, that they'll get what they want the next time or that time even. So if done with enough repetition, it can really be trained and ingrained in that way, I think.
Yeah, I think a very good example of this is Sheldon Cooper on The Big Bang Theory. I don't know if you watch that show.
I haven't, but I know him.
Oh, he's very, very self-oriented. He's a very classic example of very self-oriented, but now he has a girlfriend and he's got these other friends who have needs outside of pure logic. And I mean, he likes to think of himself as being like a Vulcan almost. And he's learned throughout the course of the series to be not completely responsive to other people's feedback and interests, but a bit better. So it is possible.
Yeah, oh, that's interesting. I got another example, completely unrelated, that I want to throw in. And so in America, what happens is that traffic's a mess. And usually what happens is that people don't know how to drive, or they will stop at a stoplight and they'll wave you forward, or you'll wave them forward. And it's totally just out of line and inappropriate. Like, you stopped like 3 seconds after the other guy and they still wave you forward. Or my favorite is when you take a left turn and it's a green light and you're like ready to go. As soon as the guy taking a right turn on the opposite side is done, you're going to go ahead and take a left after him. But my favorite thing that happens is when you're taking that left turn and you're just waiting for him, he stops at his green light and he waves you forward. Yeah. Which is totally inappropriate. I mean, I believe it should be against the law even, because it's like slows traffic down. It's wrong. And people that don't know how to drive, they do this. But what's interesting about it and how it relates to metaprograms is that it's sorting by others or sorting by self. And so what they're looking out for is they're looking out for you compared to looking out for themselves. And so it's nice, it's a good gesture, but traffic would be more efficient. In this situation, he'd be a better driver if he just looked out for himself.
And safer. Traffic would be safer. That's the thing that gets me.
Exactly.
About those people on the road.
And then, so check this out. If you go to Southeast Asia, the whole laws, everything here is designed so that everybody sorts by themselves. So there aren't really too many traffic lights in most of the parts that I visit. And what happens is you have a four-way cross, and so everybody's trying to get through. Nobody really has a stop sign or a stop light, but it's just understood that you slow down and you go when you can. You go based on when you can and not really when somebody else can. And so the whole process is just going. It's all about you. Nobody really worries about cutting each other off. They'll pull out right in front of you, and it's just what everybody does. And what I found is it actually makes it a lot more efficient, and it cuts down on the accidents that happen because I was trying to let them go, or I was trying to take care of them. I was indecisive, or those kind of things.
It's a great example.
Yeah, I think it also comes down to maybe the drivers there pay better attention.
Oh, they have to. It's life or death.
Yeah, I mean, because here
you're done for.
People don't pay attention.
Yeah.
They don't look. I mean, I'm in the parking lot yesterday. We're coming out from lunch, and I'm trying to park, and there's two cars, and they're both backing out. Neither one looks, and I had to honk in order to get them to stop and pay attention. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you said that everybody's making the best decision available to them. Here, their best decision is to pay attention, or they could die.
Absolutely.
It's so dangerous.
Dying would really put a bummer on your day.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to come back from that.
Oh, I don't know. Don't they believe in next incarnations?
Maybe. I think you might come back as a ghost or something in some of the religions.
Ooh.
I'm not sure yet who I'd like to haunt first.
You needed to pay attention, I told you.
So let's break down this sorting by others and sorting by self in some greater context so we have a better grasp on when this is probably more appropriate and the problems that we could run into doing both. Let's see. Sylvia, I want to call on you. put both of these contexts into relationships. If you could have a relationship that was totally sorting by others and then a relationship totally sorting by self, how would they be different?
If you're sorting by self, I think you have a little more control of things that go on in the relationship. You're able to say, I don't really want to go see that movie. Could we go see something else? Or you're able to say that. Excuse me. But if you were sorting by others, it would be just like, okay, honey, let's go. It would be a subservient. To me, it would be more of a subservient kind of a relationship.
Yeah. Take it to the extreme. Take it all the way extreme where maybe it's the most subservient compared to the most demanding and all about me relationship.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Couple been together for a long time. The man was very, very self-sorting, and she was a beautiful woman. Killed her. Absolutely killed her. Dead with a gun. Killed her. And it's like, it's that you. How does that happen? How do you get into a relationship that just in your head you know that you're being subservient to this person, but how do you stop that? How do you? I don't understand it. Anyone else? Any idea? Do you understand what I'm just said? It's like both. They're both playing that, and that's really what's going on there. I mean, he's telling her this is what's happening. This is what's going to go on, and so she, in the end, she finally gets what he thinks that she deserves. You can go ahead.
Danita, can you add to that?
Well, I'm just thinking from that example, I mean, that's, if he's self-motivating, I mean, it depends on the circumstance, something that would drive him to decide that she doesn't deserve to live anymore. I was thinking she probably, either tried to assert herself when she'd always been subservient, or she did something that didn't please him for whatever reason, and in his head, he decided that she just needed to be punished. I mean, we see this a lot. We've seen this in law enforcement a lot, and with battered women, and and I've worked with quite a lot of battered women, and and the mindset is that they deserved what they got, because that, again, going back to the Metaprogram, that's all they know.
Yeah.
Usually they behave in ways that are not going to trigger the person, but the fact that they're drawn to the person in the first place, because it's remembered patterns, it's familiarity, it's those Metaprograms. But if she's always trying to function based on what's likely to be a trigger for him or please him, whichever way that she's working, and it depends whether there's, again, the sort of the submodality of manipulation, because there's a lot of passive aggressive behaviors that can go along hand in hand with that.
Can I ask a question about that? If this person is being subservient to the other one, are they playing the part of the victim?
Well, yeah.
In that relationship? Are they? I wasn't.
It depends.
And it also depends on what you mean by victim, because, to Danita's point, are they playing the victim so that they can get something from it? And essentially, what are they getting from it? And is it a form of manipulation? Can I say, it's all about you, I want to take care of you, I'm doing all this for you so that you give me this? Or is it actually genuine, like, I care about you and I want to give you this, not necessarily so I can get something out of it, but so that you're taken care of, and this is a genuine feeling. And so that's the difference between the manipulation there. And I think another important part to bring up with that is that we're always doing for others so that we can help ourselves. And as unfortunate as that sounds, and as selfish as that sometimes can sound to the ears of people, is that the only reason that we help other people is because it makes us feel good about ourselves, because it takes care of our needs, our wants, and those kind of things. So I think it's like a balance.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because I'll want to work. I have a lot of friends who they give to everybody and never take care of themselves. And they'll say, I've got such and so an issue. And I'll say, well, let me help you. And they're like, no, 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 no. It's like, I don't want to bother you. I don't want to be any trouble. And I said, look, think about it this way. You love to help people. It makes you feel good, right? And they'll be like, yeah, right. And I'll say, well, just think that my helping you makes me feel good. So think about it this way, that you're helping me feel good. So just shut up and get in my comfy chair. And then they do. We have a lot of fun. We laugh a lot.
There we go. Valerie, I want to move this over into health context. What would it be like the two extremes? Because we can notice the differences all the way at the extremes. If there was a self-sorting person at one end of that, and then sorting by others at the health end.
Okay. So I didn't watch this show myself, but my friend was telling me about this show or this reality show or something. And so I'll put it in terms of food choice, since that's such a complicated topic anymore, how we choose to eat. And let's say that you have a household where not everyone wants to eat in the same way. Whomever has the upper hand, if they're a self-sorter, then on the extreme, then everyone in the house is going to eat the way that they need to eat in order to take care of their body, and there won't be anything else in the house that doesn't fit in with their program. So if you have like a very driven trainer that is, trying to achieve a certain physique, and, there's not an Oreo within hundreds of miles of that house, right? Because, that's how they're controlling the situation. Versus if you have sorting by others, where somebody may have their own preferences, but they're bending to the will of whomever it has the most influence in the house. They may not have the most power. Well, I don't know. Maybe there's the same things. But whoever has the most influence is kind of winning on how everyone is going to eat. This program in particular was kind of interesting. My friend was telling me about it. It was a family of 4 parents and 2 children, and the youngest child decided to be a vegetarian and guilted or somehow manipulated the mother who was in charge of the household food that now everyone will be a vegetarian. And the older child was so very resentful and angry, it wasn't even funny. Just really off the charts with resentment that this one, child was calling all the shots on, whether there were going to be any animal products in the house. So I just thought that's my example of the extremes in the health context.
And question for you, who do you think is going to be having the most health problems? Who's going to have heart disease? Who's going to be overweight?
So, well, assuming that people know how to take care of themselves and they have their own healthy interests at heart, I would say that sorting by others is going to be challenging if it means that they're ignoring their own kind of health needs in order to accommodate others. So if I'm cooking for the household, I don't have the luxury of making separate meals for each person that wants something different. Then, if I'm sorting by others exclusively, then I'm probably going to eat a lot of things that I don't really want to eat or are not good for me.
Danita, how would you help somebody out of that problem?
Beatings. I was thinking of the other side of that. I don't know if you've ever watched My 600-Pound Life, where the person goes and they go through all the rigmarole of getting the bypass surgery, and their partner decides that not only are they, I mean, they'll support them on the surface, but then they're sitting in front of the person eating a great big bacon cheeseburger and making fun of the fact that they're trying to make healthier choices. And, you know, and there's a lot of manipulation around that side of things. But as far as having, helping someone where you've got different people eating different things, and where a child has come along and said, I want to be a vegetarian and I think everybody else should be, there needs to be mediation, right, Valerie? And it's like, and you know, it depends.
In my house, we're not one extreme or the other.
Yeah.
But it's just me and my son, who's almost 8. I'm a solo parent. And we want to eat in very different ways. It's not that either way is particularly unhealthy. I think we have different chemistry, like different, you know, body chemistry and such.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I get scolded from other parents because I'm actually willing to accommodate both of our desired sort of diets. And so sometimes other parents will tell me that I'm letting my child run around the proverbial restaurant, you know, like I'm not teaching them to conform. But I just can't bring myself to do it. I can't eat the way he wants to, and I can't force him to eat the way I need to. Like, I just can't bring myself to do it. I think it's too personal of a thing, like what we choose, you know. I don't know.
Well, and there's a balance. I mean, you want to expose, for someone who's a young child like that, and you're the parent, you know, if there's not like a super taster thing going on, or you know, a medical.
I get scolded. See, I get scolded. This is exactly what I'm talking about.
My brother is 47 years old. He eats 10 things. And, you know, I'm the last person on this planet to scold anybody for different dietary choices. When it's my birthday, we go to the handful of restaurants where I make sure that there's food that my brother will eat.
Sorting by others. Sorting
by others. Because honestly, I like to eat so many different things. And I have plenty of friends that I can go out to eat with and eat soup.
Try it all you like.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Sorting by others, yeah.
Just I don't want him. My brother came to my mum about 10 years ago and said, I wish you would have made me eat more things when I was little. And my mother just gave him the look because she tried. She tried to offer him other choices. She tried to make different things available to him. He would drape himself across the table and say, I don't like it. And he was cute and he was little and he got away with it. So now, as an adult, it's more of a struggle for him. He's on a trip right now and they're going to fancy places.
Metaprogram about food.
It's
harder for him because as an adult he has less resources than he did as a child to take control of his life. I would challenge him on that, honestly.
Sometimes less resources is what you need.
He doesn't believe in any of this stuff.
As long as you have the right resources, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, but he thinks he's a super taster.
Yeah.
So believes he's got you know, he's got extra strong sense of smell and taste, which is entirely possible.
You might.
So the same may be true with your son.
No, I don't think that he's in danger of arriving at, you know, 10 menu items and that's it. And I don't think he's a super taster. I think that he genuinely needs a different composition in his diet in order to have his health be optimal. He can eat things that I can't eat that really make me sick.
And as long as he's not eating the couch cushions, you know, it's
No, he leaves the garden alone. Okay.
I want to give you guys an example in a different context, finances. And so if you guys can think of sorting by others and sorting by self in that kind of context, maybe sorting by yourself could be thought of like a Scrooge.
Humbug.
Sorting by others maybe could be giving to others. And I have a specific example in my life. My uncle, he lives in the Philippines. And in this place, it's interesting because there's a great ability for people to sort by others. Sometimes what happens is sometimes an American will go there and into this place where my uncle lives, and what he'll do is he'll sort by others, except he'll do it to a manipulative extent, where he's essentially giving more and more money to the families of essentially a Filipino family that he would have, a Filipino woman, maybe her mother, grandmother, those kind of things, but they'd give so much money in order to be with them, to be together, and all these different things. But it's to a manipulative extent where essentially the guy didn't really think he was enough and has to buy his way into a family or something like that.
Yeah.
And so the example that I have for you is a different one, an example of my uncle, where I've never met somebody who's so giving to other people. He truly does sort by others when giving other people money. And so what I noticed firsthand is that everywhere he goes, he's trying to take care of people. And I'm just enamored with this ability to do it. We go out to dinner. He makes sure everybody's taken care of. Everybody can order whatever they want, whether it's 5 people, whether it's 10 people. After dinner, we'll be on the street, and there'll be a very, very poor woman. The first example that I had was a woman who was just sleeping against the restaurant, had a cardboard box underneath her, and had 2 children running around. And my uncle just reaches out of his pockets, gives a huge amount of money tries to give it to her, but she's too disoriented, asleep, I'm not really sure, she can't take it, and so he gives it to the child who's right near her. And so this is my most clear example of when somebody has been so successful by sorting by others in their lives with money. It was a phenomenal experience for me to see. And I wonder is if that more people sorted by others, if they'd be more successful financially. One of the great things that they talk about in the law of attraction and the secret is essentially that if you give and give, and a lot of rich people say this, if you give to charity, you're going to give back. What I've noticed in my own life is that if I let go a need to control or a need to have something, if I'm attached to having a certain amount of money, or if I'm attached to getting something, then that's where I find myself in trouble. But if I can let that go, maybe the other side of that is letting go and then giving the others, making sure they're taken care of, then you'll be taken care of as well. And so I just kind of want to throw all those thoughts out and give you guys that example and kind of have a discussion about that. What do you guys think? Whoever wants to share first.
I think that if you give, it does come back to you, no matter what it is. But sometimes you have to be careful. You have to kind of take care of yourself too. You know, don't have a lot of money just be thrown around to do stuff like that. It would be nice to have a lot of money to do that. But Mother Teresa didn't have any money. She just helped everybody. It didn't matter.
Well, and she gave of herself.
Yes.
So
yes.
you can give without it being about money.
That's very true.
Yeah. And to your point about attachment and freeing from attachment, the one thing I have discovered is that anytime I was desperately needing for something to go a particular way, it invariably didn't. But as soon as I didn't give a toss, every single time it works.
Yeah.
And
very much so.
Yeah. Because I used to, in my storytelling business, I used to care terribly when someone would call me and they wanted, and they would want the most ridiculous things. They would want me to drive the equivalents of from the Springs to Boulder and do 4 hours of storytelling for $10. And they wanted me to memorize a poem. And it was the event was in 2 days' time. And I would do it, and I would say thank you, and I would write a thank you card. And in the meantime, you know, my car was falling to bits, and, you know, and if someone would call me up and, you know, what, for whatever reason, they didn't want to pay my fee, or they decided they didn't want me to come and do the job, I was gutted. And then I finally realized, and I don't know if it was my father's illness that did it, but all of a sudden I realized that if I literally was detached from the outcome, I got much better results. It's like I do what I can to offer it up, and just basically, if it's the right thing, I'm going to get it. And if it isn't, then I'm not. And I just am not attached to it in any way, shape, or form. And it's just
how would
amazing.
you explain the mental shift? And I want to be specific with this because I'm interested in this. So essentially somebody comes to you and they're in your exact same situation years before, where they want to be a successful storyteller or whatnot. And they come to you and they're like, you know, I'm not having any success in this. How do I go from that place that you were at to where you are now, not really caring and having the ability to do these stories anywhere you want, having people pay you a lot of money to do it? And
well, no, I do care. It's not quite the same thing. I care very much,
okay.
but I'm not attached to it. And I forget what I was listening to or what I was reading, because I read a lot of these books, as you guys all do. And, you know, numbers of people, everybody from Wayne Dyer to Tony Robbins to Richard Bandler, all of them say, you know, detach from outcome. And I just said, you know what, just for the fun of it, I'm just going to pretend it doesn't matter. And I just kind of pretended that it didn't matter. And the first way that I actually started doing that, I did a lot of theatre the year after my father passed away. I did a load of theatre because I'd always wanted to be an actress. I know, big surprise. And I just went in and with the idea of, I'm just going to have as much fun as possible at the audition. And I'm not going to be bothered whether I get the part or whether I don't. I'm just going to go in and enjoy the experience. And I started doing that with my cold calls, with my storytelling. And I also shifted the way that I was marketing, because I would call them up with, hi, I'm a storyteller, and if it's not too much trouble, I would like to come and would you please let me come to your location and I'll tell you stories. And I changed that to, you've got all these kids you have to entertain. I am offering you the chance of a lifetime. Not only am I going to come to your center and entertain those kids for an hour, but I've even saved you the trouble of having to call me. Aren't I nice? And they would be like, yes, please come.
That's good. So if you're advising somebody, and this is what I take from that, is to have fun with it. Pretend like it doesn't matter and enjoy the process. Would that be similar summation?
Yes. And the other thing that just crossed my mind was also to behave as if I was my own personal assistant. So I'm just you know, promoting Danita Feldman's storytelling, and it doesn't really matter whether I get the gigs or not, because I get paid anyway, because she's paying me on an hourly basis. So I also separated myself from myself. Now, is that self-oriented or other-oriented? Goes back to our discussion at the very beginning.
I'm thinking that's very interesting use case for the opposite of parts integration. Parts disintegration or something, in order to create that personal assistant and let the personal assistant be the best one that they can be, in which they have to be detached in order to be successful. That's really interesting.
Yeah, because and it's also kind of a metacognition position, because you know, if you're kind of standing beside yourself, then it gives you distance, just like if you're watching someone on television or you're watching somebody else behaving in a particular way, and it's much easier to see what they need in order to be successful because you're not inside it anymore. So
Perspective.
Yeah. So anyway, so it worked for me.
Any other thoughts on self-sorting or sorting by others?
Well, I was listening even though I had to step away, and I think you were talking about it in terms of your uncle and his generosity, and I think, Sean, you were speculating, if I heard you right, about if people were more sorting by others, if they'd be more financially successful. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, that's what I wonder.
Yeah, that resonates with me. I'm not going to say that I am some shining example of that, but I have observed that generosity is a state of mind. It's like a state of being. And I do think that when we're generous, it can definitely come back to us, sometimes with a multiplier, which can be really powerful.
I have an example for you guys in this. So I'm leaving Singapore today, and I want to get my favorite girl, I want to get her a souvenir. And so what I'm wondering is, how generous should I be? Should I go and get her some nice earrings, or should I go and get her a postcard and write something really nice on the postcard? And so part of me wants to be really generous, and then another part of me wants to protect myself and not be so generous.
What's her love language?
Like all of them. The girl speaks love everywhere. I know more specific. I would say she likes gifts. She's given me gifts before. She does enjoy gifts. But it's an example that I face too in my challenge. And what I want to be is probably a more giving person. And so that's probably the direction that I need to push myself to. Will I do that? I'd say about 60% chance right now.
Do you think if you were to give her these really nice earrings that it would feel inauthentic to her because she knows you well enough now to know that that's not you?
No, it's within my realm. It's not too far outside. You know, if it was like a fancy necklace or like a diamond ring or like a really more upper scale thing, then it would be a little bit disingenuous. I think what it might come down also to is a person's ability to have the sorting be dependent on not necessarily the person and their action, but the internal gratification that they get from giving. So the two differences is that, am I doing it to get something from her, or am I doing it as a general expression of, this is how I feel about you, I'm grateful for you in my life? The
And
difference,
what's the answer to that?
Huh?
What's the answer to that?
Well, definitely that. But the trouble for me and my resistance is my ability to communicate that, my fear in not communicating the right thing.
Can't you do both?
Do both what?
Well, you were going to write her a postcard, right? Write her something along with the earring. So do both.
Possible.
It really does. One takes money, the other doesn't take anything, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you're on the spot. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I'm back and forth with it. But yeah, so that's where I find it as a challenge in my life.
What feels right? Tune inside and tell us what feels right.
I'm right in the middle. It's going to be one or the other.
Okay.
Previous behavior has always been just a postcard and going so far.
All right, so play it out through the timeline and go out into the future where you see her and you've sent her a postcard.
Oh, it would be more about giving.
Okay.
So that happens. Sorry, I had a disturbance over here. Some guy was going through the trash. I don't know what that's all about.
You were talking about giving, so he was looking for something that you had given into your trash.
Yeah, I don't know. He's just running through the trash. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he pulled out like 2 water bottles from the trash. I'm like, okay.
Oh, so he's conserving the environment.
Like, what's going on here? All right, what was the
So future pace, the other thing, the earrings.
Oh, postcard. Okay. I was future pacing the postcard. I had that. Yeah, it goes well. I give it to her. She smiles. She's happy. She's grateful. Huge smile on her face. She loves it. Exact thing that I could expect. Turns out well. I future pace the earrings. I sense fear in myself in giving them to her. And then a little bit of apprehension. She loves them, enjoys them, smiles. Potential for it to get too much, like it's too much of a gift. She finds maybe she has too much power. Yeah.
So it sounds like the stage you are in the relationship, it's postcard.
Yeah, easy answer there.
Maybe the next trick, maybe buy the earrings and save them for Christmas.
I was thinking that as an option as well.
Because then there's slightly less pressure, because then it's an event rather than I went to this place and I bought you back something that could be perceived as something fancy with some baggage attached to it, which is what
Sean doesn't celebrate Christmas.
Yeah, it's true.
Who doesn't? Oh, Sean doesn't? All right, so midwinter solstice gift then.
There we go.
Or New Year's gift. That's what Anne Boleyn gave to Henry VIII.
So if I become a more others
No
sorted,
baggage there.
if I'm more of
I mean, you have to rethink Christmas, because I think this is getting really...
Exactly, yeah, I might have to be a more giving person and start sorting by others. No, I'll give you some more context with this. And so this girl, she's a real sorting by others person, where she really takes care of other people, does tremendously well financially. And I want to kind of be like her or model some of the things that she's doing. And so that's the challenge for me. She's also really good in love, good in relationships, good with her friends. And she's a giver. And so that's what I'm kind of noticing. And so one time she just randomly got me a gift, like a hat or something, after we had been apart for a week. Mm-hmm. And so to our point in our discussion, what we looked at here today, a part of it was a little bit to kind of move us along and move the relationship along. But another part of it, I feel, was a little bit more just because she's a giver, because she's just a sweetheart. So I noticed it on 2 fronts. And so this is me kind of looking at this and saying, you know, do I want to incorporate this type of behavior more and more? Is it appropriate here? Can I become more of a giver now? And so I guess that's my challenge in seeing.
And what would happen if you did?
Oh, it's scary.
Where is it scary?
Right in here. Actually, a little bit lower.
Well, process it through.
I think the fear is a good thing. I want to keep it.
Okay.
For now.
I'm sensing a lot of baggage with this person.
Yeah, maybe just in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to move on to mismatchers and matchers, though.
Okay.
So let's have Sylvia, if you want to read the next one, matchers and mismatchers, for us. Do you have the document with you?
I do not.
Okay, I'll pull it up for you. Hold on. Okay. I found this awesome thing on Zoom where you can share my screen.
No, you didn't.
I'll prove it. Okay, are we live?
Yep.
Cool. Let's see. So we're looking at matchers and mismatchers. Sylvia, if you would.
Okay, matchers and mismatchers. How you sort information to learn and understand. Here you are a matcher looking for sameness or a mismatcher looking for differences. Example, in business, the partners who are matchers observe the same trends that they have been successful in using. The mismatcher notices a disruption in the trend.
Okay, thoughts on that before we go forward? All good there? You've seen matchers and mismatchers in your life? People that are trying to destroy things, people who are trying to put things together, essentially?
Well, it's not necessarily that. I mean, just some people look for, they're able to spot what's not working, and they're able to see where things may need to be repaired. So it's not necessarily just they're looking to break things down. They're looking for ways that might need to be improved in order for things to work properly. Because in business, you can go skipping along, and it's like groupthink. President Kennedy during the Bay of Pigs crisis, and he had a room full of people who were all matchers. And they were all yes people, and they were all being part of the group, and they were all saying, yes, Mr. President, everything's going to be fine. And we nearly wound up in a nuclear war. And President Kennedy had the sense to say, no, I need some mismatchers who can, say no and see what the other possibilities are in the situation.
I totally agree. And for me, I like to take it to extremes whenever I'm comparing it. And so sometimes the matchers or the mismatchers are the destroyers, where they hear an idea and they'll just tear it to pieces. And that is exactly what Kennedy might have needed in that situation. So if you look at this diagram right here, do you notice these boxes? Mm-hmm. And I just want you to take like a snapshot of what you see when you notice these boxes. And it's a huge level distinction, because this is just a test you can do to see whether you're looking at the two ones that are the same or the one that's totally different from other people. So when I do this, I'm a mismatcher and I see the one that's out of place. I'm so good at seeing everything that's out of place, I'm going to notice the one that's off to the side, it's shaped a little bit differently, and it's not like the other two. Other people, the people that are matches, are going to find more of the similarities with the ones that are the same. They're going to notice that they're all rectangles. They're all similar size. What were you guys' experiences when you just saw this initial diagram, this initial picture? Go for it. Go ahead, Sylvia.
Mine was sameness.
Okay. Can you walk us through what you saw?
Okay, well, I saw the two boxes, and they were vertical, and they were exactly the same. The one on the side was, to me, the mismatcher, because it's laying down. It's just different. It's maybe the same size, but it's still laying down. It's not the same.
Okay, but you noticed the two that were the same first.
Yes.
Okay. Does it bother you that the one's off to the side and not like the other two?
No.
Okay, it bothers me.
It really bothers you?
Yeah, I don't like it.
Okay.
Valerie, what did you notice?
Maybe the sameness. I was trying to speculate if I turned the horizontal one vertical, if they would all actually be the same. I was wondering about that.
Do you think they would be?
Mm-hmm.
So you turn the horizontal one to be vertical and they're all the same?
I think they might be.
Okay. Danita, what did you notice?
Yeah, I did the same thing Valerie did, where I was trying to see if the one that's on its side is the same size as the others, and I believe it is. But I also played with a lot of puzzles where they try and mess with your perception.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah. And I think I see a lot more difference now than I used to. So that's changed over the years. I think at one point I may have seen, focused on the same ones, but now and it depends on the situation. But
I think so. I think it's largely context dependent, where you're going to see a situation and you'll have enough distinctions to see the difference compared to a different one where you see just the sameness.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, it identifiably bothers me that these aren't the same. So I just went back and I thought about a bunch of different situations where I have this in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so putting it into a few different contexts, where if I have like a routine in my day or something goes awry or something's not as it should be, I'm very good at fixing it. And so I have, for example, my favorite lunch spot in Bali, my favorite routine for the day, and I'll keep getting better and better at doing it, whether it's financially or ordering the right thing or going to the right place or organizing my right day. I'll pick out things that don't match what I want in my life, things that I don't want in my day, and then I'll be able to cut those out really easily. And so what I've noticed is like a continual process adjustment that's really quick.
Cool.
And so in life, when you are a mismatcher, and this, to your point, Anita, when JFK needed one, it would have been highly beneficial for him to have this. They would have pointed out the flaws, pointed out corrections that he could have done. And so what I want to ask you guys, would you guys see you guys most as problem solvers who are easily to adapt to maybe things that have been the same for a little while, things that are changed? What would you say in this context?
Can you repeat that?
So, for example, in your work or in your daily life, if you notice something's different or something that's not there, are you easily to adapt and change it, or is it something that would have taken you a while to notice?
I'm better than I used to be. It used when things would change, or if I'd made a plan and it just didn't happen, I would get completely kiboshed for the whole, well, not just for the day, because I'm an autopsier, so I tend to, 20 years from the time that the thing actually happened, I'm still going, if I'd have just done this. But I'm a lot better at adapting now when things don't go, and I don't know if it's working with the computer stuff, but and maybe it's from getting older as well. But it just doesn't bother me the way that it did, and I'm much more able to just say, and try and just roll with whatever it is. And
Okay, Valerie, what would you say for you?
I'm not sure, because I love making plans. I mean, I'm very planned, but I don't really believe that they're going to happen according, like I feel like I love making plans because that's how I make my life manageable. Not because that's me. Like when I'm on vacation, I'm incredibly unplanned. I wasn't really interested in the itinerary at all. And I'd like to think I'm adaptable, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
What's something that's the same in your life all the time?
My bedtime.
It's always the same?
Pretty much.
And you notice if it would take a great impact in your life if it was 30 minutes off?
Yeah.
Okay. That's just an example of one thing. And so you'd have a pretty good aptitude at being the sameness or a matcher in that context. What I wonder also is that what's a different scenario where it might be a little bit harder to tell? Like, for example, I'll give you a boss. Before, in working days, a boss would not notice the employees coming in late compared to when they're coming in on time. And so for this, he'd be very poor at mismatching. So he'd notice all the times that they were the same. He wouldn't notice the times that they were different when they were late. And so in that context, he's not a very good boss or doing his job very well, based on the meta program that has kind of running in his background.
Well, that only applies if being on time is critical to getting the job done.
Fair enough, yeah.
I think I'm pretty nimble when it comes to those types of things, that I'm able to pick out what's not matching, pivot, and adjust.
And you can apply it to any parts on the job. You could also apply it to a relationship. And so say you're with somebody and everything seems to be the same. Your texting is the same. Your communication is the same. At least it appears to you. But what you don't notice is that the other person's a little bit distant. They're not replying as often. They're not embracing you in the same way that they did. And then what happens is that all of a sudden there's a momentary trigger, some kind of event happens, and then you're shocked that things are different. And so that would be a case where being a matcher compared to being a mismatcher would be a little bit more detrimental. And of course, this is a spectrum of the whole things where you're going to notice these differences and distinction along the way.
I am more of a matcher then.
More of a matcher?
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
So
what do you think?
That I'm a matcher, or if it's like, am I just in denial? I don't know.
Sylvia, what do you think?
Well, the way you put it just now, it's like I'm definitely a matcher, but I can adapt very easily too. So,
okay.
I think that
go ahead.
Sometimes when you were going through your day, it's like you set it up, you look at it, you see it, you plan it, but you can always change that. You can always change it or dismiss it or push something out of the way because this is going to take longer. Or so when you're talking about those kinds of things, yes, it's both. I think it's a little of both.
And we have to keep in mind that the meta programs are primarily the focus. And so let's take that example of relationships. Your focus is going to be on what's the same in the one meta program versus what's different in the other meta program. So you're going to be actively looking for what's changed. And so if we take it to really extremes, what we're going to have is a person, say it's a man who's with a woman, and what he's going to notice every single little difference that the woman gives him. What was that look? Why didn't you text me after 10 minutes? And it's going to go all the way to that extreme level where his whole focus is on what's different. And he does that most likely because that's what's going to benefit him. You know, when he's always been in relationships, what he's done is he's focused on what's different, what's changed, and that's given him the biggest ability to move the relationship with success. Compare that with, for instance, a man who's only focused on sameness. He's only going to be looking for the sameness in the relationship, how she still looks at him the same, how she still cares for him the same. And so what might be unaware to him is the subtle differences that he doesn't notice because his attention is going to be on only what's the same. We're still in a relationship that's still the same. So everything else, it'll go by the wayside. Maybe it won't be as passionate. Maybe it'll be even more passionate. But he won't notice it because he'll only be paying attention to what's the same. Your take, Danita?
I think that can depend, and it depends whether the motivation is from paranoia, because I think that if the guy is looking for the differences and how is she not looking at me and how is she looking at me, and you know, and
even in good context though, and the important part is just where the focus is at.
Yeah.
So it could be she's liking me more and more, and I notice that difference. I noticed
Yeah.
that difference as she hugs me 3 times more, and whatever. It's a harder hug. It's a more passionate kiss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it could very well result in paranoia. It doesn't have to.
Yeah.
Also, what I'd have to ask you about is that if you put this into kind of a context with conditioning and learned behaviors, these ones become very interesting because the mismatching or the matching becomes repetitive. And so I find the greatest chance for distinction here compared to some of the other metaprograms that we've covered, because this one has a lot of flexibility in different areas. Where, for example, if you're in a relationship and you have one case where you didn't see things to be different or changed, and you have heartbreak, for instance, then this could change a whole lot of your life, and then you could become a mismatcher quite easily.
Mm-hmm. Because we adapt when we get into a relationship with someone on that kind of a level. We kind of change ourselves in certain ways, at least at first, because we're oriented towards pleasing the other person, and we adapt our behavior, and we're more attentive, and everything they say is wonderful and amazing, and and things then settle down a bit, and it's easy to get into the well, she's not screaming and crying, so everything must be fine, and stopping noticing a lot of those things because other things are going on, and it becomes part of, just like driving a car, where a lot of that stuff becomes automatic. Whereas when we first learned to drive a car, and we were hyper vigilant about every little tiny thing, and it's like, where's my indicator, where's my steering wheel, oh my gosh, am I putting my foot on the brake, and am I putting my foot on the brake in a timely manner, and those sorts of things. And now when we drive, because we've done it for such a long time, it becomes automatic, and that can be the same in relationships. And that's why awareness, in order to be mindful and responsive, can come into play if you're interested in doing those sorts of things. So there is that side of things, and that's where it becomes more of the sameness, unless like if I worked with a guy who had been in a bad relationship, she had cheated on him, and he went into another relationship and was every day he was expecting that she was going to cheat on him.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it was because it had already happened, so he was kind of hyper aware about it. But part of it was his own self-esteem issues, that any girl who would want to be with me is obviously only with me until she can find the better person, which was sad. But that kind of causes I'm looking for, it's like, well, she didn't look at me for 3.5 seconds. She only looked at me for 3 seconds. So therefore, and they start looking at that level. And you were talking about, the extremes. I mean, people who've been hurt, they protect themselves to the point where they're not even able to let the next person in, even though that might be a much better relationship if they haven't been constantly repeating the same patterns of behavior to draw the same people in each time.
And the added
matching and mismatching.
The added effect in that is that actually when you do that behavior, you encourage that behavior to happen in the other person.
Well, yeah.
And so
at some point, they're going to say, well, if they're going to think that I'm cheating all the time, then screw it, because it's not worth it.
And then it just reinforces the pattern, the behavior, and the whole cycle for the one person.
Exactly. It's like, look, I was right. It's like, yeah, you. Now you're all alone, but you're right.
Valerie, what's going on for you?
I'm really, I'm thinking about situations where I'm able to take in new information. This is usually would be through mismatching, but able to take in new information and kind of adjust my behavior or actions accordingly. And then I'm thinking about other situations where I'm not, even if I'm aware of the new information, I'm not as quick or nimble to do it because it would be admitting that things are not matching anymore.
Wow.
I don't know. That's what's going through my mind.
That's a powerful statement there. And acknowledging that is very powerful as well. Because there is a point where we're just like, I really just want this to be the way I want it to be.
Yeah, I don't want certain things to change. I think I've had a romance dissolve last year. And I think when I looked back, like with hindsight, I could acknowledge the mismatching, the tells, if you will, where I should have seen it coming. But in the moment, I was really shocked. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
It sucks. It just does suck.
Another important part of this one is it's often how we learn as well. And so some people, they really want sameness when they learn, and so they want to see things over and over again in a repetitive cycle. And what I've learned in my learning strategy is that I like seeing something once, twice, maybe 3 times, and then I want to see something different and see an advanced application of it so that then I can cross the bridge myself.
Mm-hmm.
I see that more as a mismatcher from that perspective.
So do you think that you have a sense of achievement crossing the bridge yourself?
No. I wonder what it is, though. Because if somebody gives me some kind of knowledge, I take it and I acknowledge it. But I don't know that I necessarily believe it until I've done it myself, or it's been proved, or there's been some other application of it. I don't know if that goes into convincer strategies or what at that point, though.
I don't know. My interest is that I won't go on for too long, but at work, I'm creating new services for our customers. And our customers are adults. And so I'm thinking a lot about how adults learn. And there is some school of thought that our customers want some help, but if you help them too much, then you snatch away the victory of them figuring it out themselves or the achievement of solving their own issues. And so I've been thinking about that at work and kind of like, how am I going to walk that line as I try to create more services to help our customers be successful?
Yeah, you may need a staged approach. So you have an option that has more detail for those who need it, and one that's a bit more self-paced and self-guided. That's what we've done at my company too.
Right.
Part of the way that I design these trainings and everything that I did back in the live trainings is that I don't give all the information. I don't give everything out. I want people to think about it and people to fill in the bridges themselves. And what I've seen is that's much more engaging and that empowers people much more as well. I don't know if that's everybody being a mismatcher in education or matching more of it on their own, or just giving them something to match to and having them fill in the bridge and feel that accomplishment themselves, or having a mismatcher match your personality. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, I think this is really intriguing for me, because one thing that I want to be able to do is start profiling our customers to figure out it's not right for me to expect them to know where they fall. To your point about, self-guided versus more detailed. So I'm trying to figure out how I can profile the customer up front to kind of get them in the right program. Without having to do an NLP. And
Well, are you talking to them face to face, or are you emailing them, or how are you communicating with them?
well, I work with a lot of prospects that haven't chosen to buy our product yet. So, I mean, I do have that opportunity, but I'm not working with all of them. So,
Okay.
because
Yeah,
I'm helping our sales team, but it's not like I'm integral to the sales process, although I'm reconsidering that, not for myself, but for my team.
Uh-huh.
I'm not the magic bullet, but I'm just, I have a good close rate, though, I gotta say.
Hey, you go, girl.
Sylvia, how do you think you learn?
How do I think I learn?
Yeah.
I learn through repetitive. Doing things repetitive. And then once you've got it, then you go on to something else. It's like you finally learned how to ski, but now I want to go learn how to ice skate, and I can ski later. It's like I've gotten to where I want to go here, so I'm just going to go over here now.
Okay. How do you know that you've learned how to ski?
Oh, well, because I can go down the hill without falling down.
Okay, so you do it just once?
No, you take a whole day, and you have a whole day where you don't fall down. But
okay, so you have a whole day where you don't fall down even once, and then you know that you can ski.
it's the sameness. Yeah, sure. It's the sameness. You've reached a level where I think you've reached a level where you're comfortable and you want to change it. You just want to go. It's like your abs, okay? You've got your abs, right?
Uh-huh.
And then it's like, okay, I just want to maintain them. I don't want to have to work at them anymore. I want to just maintain them, and I'm going to go do something else.
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting. So for you, Danita, and we had talked about this a while ago, and we did I don't know if you saw the YouTube or not, but we were working on towards and away from strategies.
Yeah, I heard about it.
Yeah, my old one was a towards strategy, towards having a six-pack in my life. And once I had that, it was then an away from strategy of not losing the six-pack. And then Sylvia and Steven saw that as just building in another towards strategy. For example, what's next? What's even after that six-pack, or what's something different? So, for example, if I learn skiing, then I can go and I can try ice skating. And so that we're putting all the meta programs together here. And Sylvia, you had said you learned by the sameness, doing it over and over again, and then having the knowledge. And so the difference in that is doing it maybe once and then having a different distinction and then being able to learn it, or going off on your own and trying something new and knowing you have it. Mm-hmm. We finally got into convincer strategies, which is our next meta program. And convincer strategies are, how do you know that you know something, whether this is something that comes externally, something that comes internally, something that happens many times that proves it to you, something that happens just once. And so I'll go ahead and read them for us here. So convincer strategies, how do you know or believe that something is true? This comes in the form of seeing someone do something, hearing how good they are at it, doing it with them, or reading about them doing it. Then when are you convinced? Is it immediately? Is it twice? Is it more? Is it over a period of time, or is it consistently? And so for your example about skiing, how do you know that skiing is possible? Is it that you saw somebody do it once and they did it, and now you know that somebody can do it? Or did you see 5 people do skiing and know that everybody could do skiing from that point? And so with any area of somebody's life, we have these convincer strategies where we know what's possible based on these convincer strategies.
Who are these people that do extreme skiing? Who are they? I mean, where do they come from? They just show up somewhere and jump out of a helicopter and do these amazing things. So who are they? They're not normal. Well, I wouldn't say normal, but people that don't usually, I'm not going to go jump out of an airplane to just, skydive or do heli jumping stuff. Where do these people come from?
Do you think you could do
what is their mental strategy? I'm just asking.
Do you think it's possible for you?
What, for me to do that? No, I have no desire to do that. No.
Wait, say you did. Would it be possible?
Yes.
Okay, how do you know?
How do I know? Because somebody else did it.
Oh, okay.
It's you're the follower in the sense.
Was it one person that did it, or many people that have done it?
Well, it starts with one.
So if one person can do it, then you can do it.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
What happened in their head when nobody
That's what
had
I'm
done
asking.
it? When nobody else had done it, and they looked at the aeroplane and they said, you know what I really fancy trying is strapping on a pair of skis and jumping out of a plane on top of a mountain. Because nothing could possibly go wrong there. Yeah, no, don't sign me up. But I find that interesting, the people who, they're the first ones to do something. Well, it seems that way.
Somebody came up with that. Somebody did that.
Yes.
Is it just because they couldn't get up to the top of the mountain?
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, now I'm giving the reasons why.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can justify pretty much everything. We've seen that numbers of times, that pretty much anything is possible in people's heads, and they can justify pretty much anything.
It's true.
So, Valerie, did you notice what I did with her? Can you describe it?
Mm-hmm. You asked through the use of inquiry, you determined what her convincer strategy was for skiing. What was the frequency of it? What was the point of knowing? That's what I observed.
Exactly, and elicited it perfectly, and she was great in doing that. And so now we know, and I would actually probably transfer or believe that it transfers into other areas of Sylvia's life. While it might not apply to everyone, I would assume it does, that if she sees somebody do something once, then she knows it's possible and that she can do it.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
What I wonder is if we have a different one here in the audience.
Why do people not do things?
Very good question.
What do you think?
Well, I don't ski, in spite of living in Colorado for 30 some odd years. And my convincer was my best friend when I lived in Holland, who went on a skiing holiday, sat down on the mountain and broke both of her legs the first day. And I said, I don't want to do that. And I never have, and I have no desire.
Okay.
And I've worked with a lot of folks, and they're like, oh, we went skiing. And, it's like, yeah, no.
So this event taught you that going skiing can break your legs?
Yes, pretty much.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, no, I don't fancy that.
Do you drive?
Yeah, I drive.
Could getting in the car result in breaking your legs?
Oh,
Like on a bad day?
Absolutely. And
How do you run the risk? How do you run the risk model in your head?
Oh, that's a very good question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
That is a very good question. I think it has to do with feeling a modicum of control. And I feel like I'm in control of the car to more of an extent than I would be in control.
You can't control the other drivers, though. So
no, can't control the other drivers.
How do you know that you're in control?
How do I know that I'm in control?
If you need help, go ahead and cross-match the difference between driving and skiing. What's the difference in control?
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out. Because there have been times when I've been driving and there's been ice on the roads and things like that, where the car has slid. So there's that same feeling of lack of control. And the worst accident I was ever in, I didn't break anything.
Okay. How do you know that you have complete control?
I don't know that I have, and don't know that, did I say that I have complete control?
What's a situation that you've had complete control in? And whatever complete control is for you. controls at different levels, what's the most complete control you've been in?
Sure. I don't know that I can come up with an example of being in complete control of anything.
Closest thing.
Making breakfast.
Okay. Now, what's an example of the opposite where you felt totally and completely uncontrol, and closest that you have to that?
Well, probably when I'm being driven somewhere, and someone else is doing the driving, or when I'm in an airplane or a train or something like that, and somebody else is doing the actual controlling of the vehicle.
Okay. How do you know that you don't have control in that situation?
Because there's no steering wheel or brake where I'm sitting.
So if you had a steering wheel or a brake, you could feel in control?
Well, it depends if the steering wheel and the brake were actually controlling the vehicle, or whether they were the little kiddie ones, beep, 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 beep.
And so let me ask you this. If you could move something and then it changed your course of direction, would then you feel in control?
Probably more so.
Okay.
But there's also, for certain things, not being in control, I'm okay with. I don't have to be in control of everything. And
Okay.
I think the example with the skiing, it may be more of the time it takes to get to the ski resorts, and the amount of money to pay for the lift ticket and for the equipment, and having to deal with the cold and the temperature and all the other things that kind of compound that.
Let's go back to driving and flying real quick. Let's say you're on a plane or you're in the car and you have the ability to move the plane in a direction by moving a wheel or some kind of lever. Let's say you did that 5 times. Would you feel in control then?
Probably not in that circumstance. If somebody else was driving and had the power to override whatever I had done.
Okay, let's say that nobody's driving and there's just a wheel there and you turn it a few times and then it moves every time that you do it.
I'd say, oh bloody hell, I'm not qualified to fly a plane.
Maybe not.
Where's my friend who has the pilot's license?
Maybe not, but would you feel in control?
Well, it depends whether I was wearing brown trousers or not. I mean, I've been driving for many, many years. I have some reason to assume that flying a plane, if I had to fly a plane, that I would have enough wherewithal to be able to figure it out. But would my heart be pounding? Would I be shitting myself? Oh, absolutely. Would I feel like I was in control? I don't think so. But I would just have to use whatever coping mechanisms, and then have my heart attack once I got back on the ground.
Okay. And so maybe you go ahead and move the steering wheel and it changes a lot. Would it then be a situation where you feel in control? More or less control?
That's interesting, because saying that shifted something. Something shifted. That was interesting. And Sylvia's nodding. So did something interesting happen for you too, Sylvia?
Yes. I don't know what.
I don't know what either, but it was an interesting shift.
Let's say you're in that plane and you just move it a little bit and it moves just a little bit. How more in control do you feel?
That's better. That's definitely better.
Better how?
It definitely has a feeling of that I'm the master of my fate a bit more.
So
I still might die, but I moved and it moved. So,
okay. let's say you turn it all the way and it spins around in a circle, this plane, and it's not going out of control. You don't have to go into that, but you're moving it so it's just circling the sky. You feel in control now?
Yeah.
Much more or just a little bit?
No, much more.
Okay.
Because then my actions are making the effect happen.
Okay. Let's say you move the steering wheel just a little bit and the plane moves in circles like that. Do you feel more or less in control?
Less.
Okay. And so let's say you move the steering wheel a whole bunch. You're just turning and turning and turning, and the plane moves just a little bit. Do you feel more or less in control?
Less, I think. Yeah.
Okay, you're turning it, and the plane moves a little bit less.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go ahead and you're turning and turning and turning, and the plane's turning and turning and turning as well. More control then?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. What did I just do there?
Yay.
What did I just do there? Do you know?
Now, Valerie didn't have a lot of response to all of that stuff. What's going on with you, Valerie?
Pin it on Valerie.
No, I'm just curious.
Yeah. It was profound in what happened, so I want to see if you guys got it.
Well, you reframed something.
Okay. So I wanted to know her convincing strategy when she was in control. Sylvia, what for you?
Well, I think that, first of all, you gave her a wheel, like as something that she could associate it with. And when you made it a little bit, when it went a little bit, she felt a lot in control. But when it was going, like making a turn, it was not so controlling. And in the end, it kind of all just came together. It's like, oh, I can do this. I have a wherewithal to be able to make this work. A similarity, a copy, that bridge that goes from sameness to, okay, this isn't working, but you still go back to that comfortable place that you're at.
Okay. Danita, what do you think about your strategy or convincer strategy for control?
That I like to go in circles.
Potentially. We can go to Disney World. I'll give you all the control.
Yeah.
Those spots, I'm not getting on.
No, I don't like that ride. My brother likes that ride, but I don't like that ride.
I can't take it every time. No, so what I did is I wanted to figure out exactly when she felt in control, and so it was a different level. But what you're going to have in these strategies and any kind of feeling that you have in your life, anytime that you know that you have the feeling, there's going to be certain levels and certain points that somebody's going to know that they have control, for instance. They're going to know they feel safe, for instance. They're going to know they feel secure, happy, blessed, whatever the feeling is. At some point, they're going to know, and they're going to have a reason for knowing in some kind of unconscious process. And so what I wanted to do there is elicit her unconscious process for knowing that she was in control. And so what I first did is we put her on a plane where she felt totally not in control. She knows that she's not in control in that. And then we also put her in a situation where she's going to have total control. And we didn't necessarily go back to that, but I can kind of guess how that would have gone. But so you have these two comparing situations, and we can go back and we can cross-match those and see how they're like, see how they're different. But what we noticed in the plane and through doing different things is we gave her a steering wheel. And so once she had the steering wheel, she could turn it. She had a little bit of semblance and control.
Mm-hmm.
So she knows that she can control something when she can do an action to move it in some way. That was our first step. Then what we noticed is that and what I wanted to do is I wanted to see what it would be like if she turned it. And so I had her do, I believe the first one was just moving it a little bit, and the plane moves just a little bit. So she felt more in control from that. Okay, we know that it works. We tested it. And then the second we move just a little bit, but the plane moves a lot. What am I testing for there when that happens? This is a little bit of a challenge for you guys.
When she loses control?
So what we have her do is we have her do an action where she just moves the steering wheel a little bit and the plane moves a lot. What am I testing for when I do that?
Her limits?
Yes, and there's a specific distinction in that compared to the first example. In the third example, what we look at doing is we have her move the steering wheel a lot, and the airplane moves just a little bit. So it's another little distinct difference. What is it that we're looking at there?
Well, I can tell you about the experience from the inside, because when you had me imagine turning a little bit and it moved a lot, there was a real feeling in my gut of panic. Because I've experienced that in my car when, like again, when I said when the car slides on the ice and moving the steering wheel just a little bit or putting my foot on the brake and the car keeps going. And that's just a terrible feeling of, for me, of feeling like I've lost control. I don't have the control.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So that's what it felt like from the inside, was that real gut-wrenching, oh my God, I'm going to die. Or at least I'm going to bash up my car or whatever it was. You know, it's just a terrible feeling of lack of control.
That's beautiful. Do you guys see that structurally? What we're looking at, what we're testing for, is to see how much her influence on whatever it is, her influence on the world and the response to the world, how that affects her control. So essentially the wheel is her input, her decision-making, her choices, her actions, and how much of that will impact how she has control. So the plane and how much it circles is how much the world changes. In our example, she does an action, spins the steering wheel, and then something happens in the world, the plane turns. And so one can reasonably assume that if she goes ahead and turns the steering wheel and the plane turns it, she has control over the plane or control in that situation. And so we elicited first that that's to be true. That was our first example. That's confirmed that she has control because she does an action and the world responds. Second, what we looked at doing is that we made the input really small, where she changes something just a little bit and there's great change in her environment. Here is the example of her spinning out of control in her car. She does not like that. She does not feel any semblance of control. She hates that, and control goes down in that situation. So she does not feel control where she does little action and there's great change in the world. Okay, now this can change from person to person, and it's just important to understand these different ones. The other example we did was the other extreme, where I had her do a whole bunch of turning. Turn the steering wheel, and the plane turns very little. In this one, she didn't have a reasonable sense of control as well as it was going up. She didn't say that control was going up a whole lot in this place. It was negligible, right? Like not really different, pretty much the same as it was before, right?
Yeah. I'm thinking about that. It came as a failure of the equipment. Something's wrong with the equipment.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's how it feels from the inside. Because
where you're doing all the work.
Yeah.
All the work, very little happens, then she doesn't feel very in control. Yeah. The last example where she felt most in control is where her actions, turning the steering wheel, was equivalent to the plane turning as well. So when her actions aligns with the world and how she believes they should be, that's when she feels most in control. put this in a different context. When she's on the road driving, if she does a certain action that matches how the action should be in the world, how the world should change based on her action, then she feels in control. So when actions match the world's response, that's when Danita feels in control.
At least when flying an airplane.
So I'll give you a quick example. Yeah, or an airplane.
Or driving a car.
I'll give you another example because I want to see how this transfers in the relationship. Let's say, and just fast forward with me on your timeline here. Let's say sometime in the future you meet someone and you do something very small to show him love, show that person love or something like that. And then what happens is you get a great deal in return, a whole bunch of love, a whole bunch of whatever it is. Let's say it's a whole lot. What happens in that situation? And look specifically at control for you. How does that make you feel?
It's interesting because it's a similar thing, because I've actually experienced that, where the demonstration from the other party has been vastly out of proportion, and there's a feeling of, oh my God, what does he want?
I bet that. I was thinking that. And what happens when you do a whole bunch and you get very little?
I've had that too. It's somewhat different. It depends if it goes on and on and on, which I've also had. But my natural modus is to give.
Okay.
So, and that's my choice and my control to give. So,
do you at least feel a little bit out of control when that happens?
No.
Okay.
No.
So in that context, it might be a little bit different.
I might get pissed, but I don't feel like it.
I wonder. We could probably cross over some more of those, but yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks for that demonstration.
Oh, you're welcome.
That does as well for knowing convincer strategies.
Yeah.
We are running out of time here, but I think that does us well for that. What we'll go into next week is probably a little bit more convincer strategies, and then we'll probably finish out the rest of the document and finish up Metaprograms.
Cool.
Any final thoughts from you guys?
I'm hearing what is the background
Where's
noise
it coming from?
Yeah.
We have people in the kitchen that are just going crazy in different languages.
Oh, okay.
Sounds like a benign riot.
A little bit. They give us some bread and Nutella and peanut butter here, so everybody goes a little bit crazy in the kitchen in the morning.
Wow, bread and bananas and Nutella. Wow.
Oh, it's delicious. I'm really enjoying. I don't think I've ever actually had Nutella, so I'm enjoying it.
Oh.
And it's hard to find that stuff in Bali, so yeah, it's been interesting.
Well, we'll tell your mum to send you a care package.